Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be showing off the new and improved FireBirds. Most recently we got a new change for the PTR to make it so the FireBirds build is actually going to be using all 6 pieces of FireBirds. Previously what we had ran was the 6 piece of Talrasha and the 4 piece of FireBirds, and that was the best build for the new wizard. Now we have a new build that is going to be the best. This is going to be for season 23 and patch 2.7. Keep in mind though, just as a heads up, because it is the PTR, things are subject to change, but right now this is currently the best build and it is capable of doing 150s. There's already several people that have been on the leaderboards at 150s running this exact same build. Now let's go ahead and first off mention that the new FireBirds will not be in the live servers right now. So in the live servers, it will still show off the old FireBirds, which is completely different than the new FireBirds that will be in season 23 or on patch 2.7, which will have this 4,000 multiplier. Once you go ahead and ignite something, you're going to be able to deal 4,000% more damage to an enemy as long as something is ignited and you're using a non-channeling skill. So your main source of damage is not going to be disintegrate. It's actually going to be coming from Spectral Blade. But first off, let's go ahead and go over the playstyle and how it works, then I'll go over all the pieces of gear. Now, I do want to mention, in case any of you guys do want to play this build, it will be a little bit strange to play in the very beginning, and the reason why is because you have to make sure you are upkeeping the Orb of Infinite Depth stacks. If you do not upkeep these stacks, you will melt instantly. That is the main thing with this build that will make or break the playability and viability to actually play it. You need to be able to keep those stacks of Explosive Blast, and sometimes it's better just to get that max stack on Explosive Blast versus killing an enemy faster. Otherwise, you will melt super fast. So just want to mention that as a heads up. This is a build where there is something that is really important that must be upkept, that you do have to activate quite frequently. But our main source of damage is actually going to be coming from Spectral Blade. We're going to be running the Flame Blade so we get extra damage with our fires abilities, and mostly it's just to also proc the awesome ability of the deflection rune on the magic weapon, granting ourselves a extra shield. So you're going to be attacking super fast with this because we're also running what got a buff more recently, the Fragment of Destiny. So this makes it so our signature spells will be attacking 50% faster, and we will also be dealing triple damage. There's also another thing that works with Hydras, but Hydras has been dropped from the builds in terms of like competitiveness. We're also running the Shame of Delzier, which also grants us another 50% faster, and it also restores arcane power, which will actually be utilized with one of the items in the cube. But basically, we're going to be attacking super fast with our Fragment of Destiny with Spectral Blade. So this is your damage ability. But we still also need to activate Disintegrate to actually have the ability to actually get that massive amount of damage bonus, because we have to ignite an enemy, and Disintegrate is the skill for that. Normally people would want to run the Fire Rune, but because of elemental exposure, you can get more damage off of just running the Arcane Rune, which is Chaos Nexus, which makes it so that Beam actually can hit enemies kind of on the side. It's just activating the ability to go ahead and ignite the enemy, and again, it just happens to be Arcane, so works with the elemental exposure. And then next up we have Explosive Blast Chain Reaction. You're not going to be dealing damage with this, so no Wanda Woe over here. You just want it for the Orb of Infinite Depth for the extra damage and damage reduction. And then Magic Weapon Deflection, which is pretty much in every single wizard build. I mean, look how fast we're attacking. It is insane how fast you can attack with this build. And then we have Black Hole Spell Seal. This makes it so enemies that are hit grants increased damage. So it's quite nice, and they also deal reduced damage. So it's a ability for survivability, and on top of that, extra damage. This thing, you want to try to group up a bunch of enemies if you can, because if you activate it again on a smaller group, the newer number will overlap the older one and it won't like add them together. So sometimes it's better just to wait until there's a better group versus just trying to keep it up 100% of the time. You also see that once I go into the rift, I will instantly try to activate the Disintegrate, because how it works is you now have 100 stacks of the ignite, and what you want to try to do is be able to teleport as fast as you can. Now, if you already use teleport without getting those stacks, and you build up those stacks, the stacks will not then reflect on the teleport that's on its current cooldown. You will have to wait for teleport to already go over its entire cooldown, and then you will be able to have the like super fast teleport after you get yourselves a stack. So that's something important that I want to mention really quick, because the next skill is teleport and you run safe passage, and you want to be spamming this the whole time. Make sure that that bar is up with the safe passage, because for 5 seconds you take 25% less damage. As a lot of wizard builds, normally you would play with Halo of Karuni to get a huge amount of damage reduction, but we don't need it here. We're running something else. So in terms of the passives, I've seen a few different variations, but this is the most common one that is clearing 150s right now. So it's galvanizing ward is pretty much in every single build. I would say this one is basically required for wizards just in general, especially because the Ash Blood Bracers grant you that extra potency of the shield. But Audacity is great because you're only going to be dealing damage to enemies basically with Spectral Blade, so you're going to be in melee range. So it's basically 30% additional damage. Then we have Elemental Exposure. Again, this will go ahead and be procced with your Arcane and Fire. And then we have Unwavering Will. So if you're standing still, this is usually used for bosses when you're waiting for Convention of Elements rotation. In the gameplay that you guys are seeing, they are all 100 plus. And with Unwavering Will, once you start going higher, if you want to like push 130s, you're going to need to probably sit in some area for a while when you're attacking, waiting for potentially that Convention of Elements rotation or whatever the case may be. And this is an excellent passive. But technically, this one can be swapped out. I would say if there's anything that can be swapped out, it's Unwavering, maybe Elemental Exposure, but the Galvanizing and the Audacity are pretty much going to be in every single one. Now, in terms of the cube, we run the Furnace as well as the Aquila. This is going to grant us a bunch of damage reduction because we don't really spend resource. When we're using our abilities, some of them will cost resource, but for the most part, this is just going to be able to maintain our arcane power real easy. And then Furnace is just extra damage against elites. And then, just like every Diablo build, Convention of Elements is excellent. Gotta wait for that right rotation to go ahead and get that massive amount of damage. Now, on the pieces of gear, there is one thing that I want to mention really fast. Normally in builds, you would try to get like plus damage to, let's say, Spectral Blade, or disintegrate your main damage. In this case, because the numbers are already high enough, you actually can opt to be a little bit more on the survivability side. So don't worry too much about getting like the plus bonus damage to like that certain skill. But going over the important stats that do matter that you want to look for on your helm, most important thing is just getting that crit hit chance. And then inside of it, you can opt to put in a amethyst, or you can put in a diamond for cooldown reduction, or again, for more survivability, you can throw in the amethyst. The cooldown does technically help out really with the spell steal, which groups up the enemies, which is really nice. And on top of that, you can also have extra cooldown for your explosive blast. So it technically also does add survivability to your build because you're able to spam out your other skills a little bit more. Plus, it's a little bit more fun. But if you're just dying really fast, it's probably because you're not activating Orb of Infinite Depth. Again, this is the most important thing with this build. If you want to go up higher in the GRs, you need to be able to keep up these stacks. But next up, we have the shoulders. There's nothing really important, just all defensive stats is totally fine for this. And then you don't really need to roll cooldown on your pieces of gear with this build either. Chest, nothing important here. In terms of all the gems, you can throw in any gems that you want to. If you need more damage, throw in intelligence, but for the most part, you need for survivability the extra dexterity, or you can throw in the extra strength for, again, more armor, so that'll keep you up a little bit more. Then with Scorched Necklace, ideally, if you can get the elemental, in our case it's going to be fire, but it's always going to be easy to roll that crit hit chance and damage on it. It's just getting that main stat with all of those to be like relatively good. It can be difficult, but if you can get the fire, that's great. Bracers, nothing too important that would be different from another build. You want the Ash Blood Bracers, and that's going to double up your shields, or it goes up to double those shields if it rolls perfectly, but it's just there for the bonus in the fire department and the crit chance that you're really looking for. As far as the gloves go, again, this build heavily is favored with attack speed because that will grant yourself extra shield, plus it's just more damage overall. So you do want to try to get attack speed if you can on your gloves, but crit chance, crit damage, nothing too special with that. For one of our rings, it's going to be focus, the other one's going to be restraint. Pretty much the same thing. Attack speed is something that can be favored, but crit chance, crit damage is kind of what you will get on most of them anyways. That would be relatively easy to roll on them. And then for our pants, nothing special with this, just look for a bunch of defensive stats. Ideally, if you get like the all resist, if you can roll up to armor, that would be ideal. And then for the belt, again, there are times where people have rolled the plus damage to Spectral Blade, but for the most part, it's just more of a benefit to have the extra tankiness. So nothing too special with this. And don't worry about the roll on the secondary, the restoring power. Technically, yes, it does help out, but get the one with the best stats. The other effect doesn't matter because it always rolls with the 50% attack speed. And then with the restraint, same thing, just attack speed, crit chance, crit damage. But if you roll it like main stat over the other ones, don't worry, it's not going to be the end of the world. And then for the Orb of Infinite Depth, if you can get the increased elite damage with the crit hit chance, that's the most important thing at the end of the day. Obviously, you still want it to have main stat, but it's really hard to get everything to roll perfect, but don't worry about the rest of the stats on the Orb of Infinite Depth. Although the secondary can be quite good, because remember that this can stack up to 4 different times. So if you roll it really bad, like an 8%, because it goes 8 to 10, that's going to be a huge amount, because remember, you're stacking it 4 different times. So ideally, if you can get a good secondary, that would be ideal. And then Fragment of Destiny, the only important stat really here, if you can roll it, is to get the extra attack speed. Because again, that is going to increase not only your damage, but it's also part of your survivability with this build. Now, in terms of the legendary gems, with any build in Diablo, you got to run the Bane of the Stricken, so that's really good with this build, especially for the Rift Guardian, because you're going to be attacking super fast. And once that stack builds up, you'll melt. And then we want Bane of the Trap, just like on a lot of other builds. And then now we are also running the Gogoku Swiftness. This is, again, more attack speed, as I mentioned before, but it also grants us extra survivability and extra cooldown reduction, so that's kind of nice with that as well. But that's going to go ahead and wrap up the build. If you guys have any other suggestions for this or any other things that we can swap in and out, usually I try to show you guys builds and I try to give you guys the variations, but there really isn't any room for improvement on this. It's pretty much been maxed right now. Every single person that's cleared a 150 is pretty much running the same thing. There might be some variations of like not running Unwavering Will, but for the most part, it's pretty much, this is like, you got to run this. The difference is you can also run a Amethyst in the helm if you want, again, for more survivability if you want to, but not too many other like builds can really min-max, out of swapping something else here. But that's the new Firebirds, guys, going into Season 23. Unless they change anything, this will be the go-to Firebirds set build. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like on it. And if you're new here and do want to be up to date with Diablo stuff, as they do add more content, and if there is some update, I'll let you guys know. As I do also want to cover the Necromancer build that got completely nerfed. I don't even know if it's playable. We're gonna try and we'll see if it's actually any good at all. But thanks for tuning in, guys, and if you're new here, subscribe, turn that bell if you want to see more Diablo content, as I will be uploading some more very soon, as there's also a new change with Demon Hunter, which is quite cool. It was kind of unexpected. But anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a good one, and I'm signing out. Peace.